Cain's haunting question to God in Genesis, chapter 4, verse 14, "Whoever finds me will kill me," strikes a chord of mystery that echoes through the ages. If Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel were the only people on earth, then who was Cain afraid of? Where did these other people come from? This single, unsettling question cracks open a vast and often overlooked gap in the Genesis narrative, a gap that has given rise to theories that suggest humanity may not have begun with Adam and Eve alone. What if Genesis doesn't tell the full story of our origins? What if other beings existed before Adam? Beings whose existence has been veiled in shadow and silence. In this video, we will explore the shocking and controversial concept of the pre-Adamite world, a realm that may have existed long before Adam took his first breath. We will uncover ancient texts, biblical passages, and hidden clues that suggest a civilization that was here before the Garden of Eden, before the fall, before the dawn of mankind. We'll also examine the enigmatic sons of God, spiritual beings who were present before the creation of Adam and who may hold the key to understanding the true origins of human existence. Stay with me to the end, because what you're about to discover could forever change the way you see the Genesis narrative. And as always, if you love exploring biblical mysteries, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Sacred Wisdom for more content like this. Now, let's uncover the ancient truth that the Bible has kept hidden in plain sight. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. It's a familiar opening, a declaration of divine power and purpose. But then, something unsettling happens, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. How did a creation spoken into existence by a perfect God suddenly become a wasteland of chaos and darkness? The Hebrew words tohu wa bohu depict a state of utter desolation and emptiness, a cosmic wreckage. Imagine a bustling city suddenly struck by a catastrophic event, towering buildings reduced to rubble, streets once filled with life now silent and empty. That's the earth in Genesis 1:2, a world that has been brought to ruin, waiting to be restored. But what could have caused such destruction? Was this the result of a cosmic war, a divine judgment, or the fall of angelic beings? These questions are not just speculative, they are hinted at in the very text of Scripture itself. The Bible often uses vivid imagery to describe events that transcend human history. Jeremiah chapter 4 verses 23 to 26 provides a haunting vision. "I beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form and void, and the heavens, and they had no light. I beheld the mountains, and lo, they trembled, and all the hills moved lightly. I beheld, and lo, there was no man, and all the birds of the heavens were fled. I beheld, and lo, the fruitful place was a wilderness, and all the cities thereof were broken down at the presence of the Lord, and by his fierce anger." What is Jeremiah seeing? He lived thousands of years after Adam, yet he describes a world that is eerily similar to the void and darkness of Genesis 1:2, a world where cities once stood, where birds once flew, now laid waste by divine wrath. Was this a vision of a pre-Adamic destruction? Then we have Isaiah, chapter 45, verse 18, which states, "For thus saith the Lord that created the heavens, God himself that formed the earth and made it. He hath established it, he created it not in vain, he formed it to be inhabited." If God did not create the earth to be empty, then why was it described as formless and void in Genesis 1:2? What happened between these two verses? Now, imagine walking through a modern city, skyscrapers towering above, streets bustling with life. Then, in an instant, it's all gone. The streets are empty, the buildings are in ruins. This is the image Scripture paints of the world before Adam, a civilization erased, a world laid to waste. But what happened to its inhabitants? Where did they go? Before Adam, before Eve, before Cain and Abel, were there others? The Bible offers tantalizing clues that suggest so. Job chapter 38 verse 7 speaks of a time when the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. These sons of God are celestial beings, witnesses of the earth's creation. But what role did they play? Some scholars propose that these beings were not just passive observers. They may have ruled the earth in the ancient world, a civilization of spiritual entities, angelic in nature, but capable of great wickedness. Were they the ones Cain feared when he was exiled to the land of Nod? Think of how modern archaeologists uncover lost civilizations buried beneath centuries of soil. Cities once bustling with life, now reduced to ruins. What if the Bible is doing the same? Uncovering a lost world, a forgotten race, a hidden chapter in the story of creation. Could Cain's fear be a lingering echo of that lost world? Did he know of these beings? Did he encounter them? And if so, what does that mean for us today? If this world existed before Adam, who ruled it? Who were these beings that Cain feared? To find the answer, we must look to the celestial hierarchy. The sons of God, who sang during the earth's creation, and the ones who later rebelled against their divine purpose. Before the first human foot touched the soil of Eden, before Adam took his first breath, there were witnesses. Divine observers who beheld the very formation of the earth. In Job, chapter 38, verse 7, God asks Job a haunting question. Where were you when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Who were these sons of God? The Hebrew term Ben Elohim refers to heavenly beings, spiritual entities who stood as celestial spectators of creation's grand spectacle. These were not mere passive observers. They were majestic beings created before the earth itself, present at the dawn of time. Imagine standing in a high-rise building, watching a powerful storm rage below. You see the destruction unfolding, the chaos and confusion, but you are powerless to intervene. That's the role of the sons of God, watching as creation unfolded, as the earth transitioned from chaos to order. But what did they witness? Did they see a world come to life, or a world fall to ruin? And if they were witnesses, what were they witnessing? Was it the formation of a new world, or the destruction of an old one? In the heavenly realms there is order, structure, and a clear hierarchy. Much like we have governments, military ranks, and elite guards today, the celestial realms operate under strict hierarchies, each rank with its unique purpose and role. Cherubim, the guardians of Eden. After Adam and Eve were exiled from the garden, Genesis chapter 3 verse 24 tells us that God placed cherubim at the entrance, armed with a flaming sword to guard the way to the tree of life. These beings were powerful, fearsome, and unwavering in their duty. They weren't mere statues with wings. They were cosmic protectors, standing watch over sacred realms. Seraphim, the worshippers. In Isaiah chapter 6 verses 2-3, the prophet Isaiah describes the seraphim, beings with 6 wings, forever proclaiming, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." These celestial beings were closest to the throne of God, their voices echoing throughout the heavens in a continuous song of worship. Archangels, the messengers and warriors. Among the highest ranks are the archangels, with 2 being prominently named in Scripture. Michael, the protector, the one who leads the heavenly armies. In the book of Daniel, he is the defender of God's people, the Prince of Israel. Gabriel, the messenger, the one who brings divine revelations. It was Gabriel who announced the birth of Jesus to Mary, bearing a message that would change the course of human history. Each of these celestial beings has a specific role. They are not random entities floating in the cosmos. They are part of a divine structure, a heavenly government. But among these ranks was one who held a position of incredible power and prestige, a being whose fall would shake the very foundations of heaven and earth. Before he was Satan, the adversary, the accuser, he was Lucifer, the morning star, a guardian cherub of dazzling beauty and wisdom. Ezekiel chapter 28 verses 12-16 paints a portrait of his splendor. "You were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty." You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone adorned you. You were anointed as a guardian cherub, for so I ordained you. Lucifer wasn't just any angel. He was a guardian cherub, entrusted with a high and holy office. He stood at the very throne of God, enveloped in light, adorned with every precious stone. He was perfect in his ways until iniquity was found in him. But what was his sin? Pride. He looked at his beauty, his power, and said in his heart, I will ascend to heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. Isaiah chapter 14 verse 13. It was a coup attempt in the highest court, a celestial rebellion led by one of God's most trusted and powerful beings. Think of a trusted leader, a general who rises through the ranks only to betray his people and seek to overthrow the very system that made him great. That was Lucifer, a guardian who became a traitor. But when he fell, he didn't fall alone. He dragged a third of the heavenly host down with him, turning them from celestial protectors to fallen adversaries. But what if his rebellion didn't just shake the heavens? What if it left a void on earth? A void that would later be filled by the very beings that Cain feared. Lucifer's rebellion was not the only one. Another group of celestial beings would choose a path of disobedience, descending to earth and forever altering the course of human history. They were called the Watchers, and their story would lead to the birth of giants, the Nephilim, a race of beings that would haunt the ancient world and send echoes of fear through the heart of Cain. Before the Great Flood, before the rise of the Nephilim, a group of heavenly beings known as the Watchers descended to earth. Their mission? To observe humanity, to watch and protect, ensuring that the divine order remained intact. In Daniel chapter 4 verse 13, the prophet describes a vision. I saw in the visions of my head upon my bed, and behold, a watcher and a holy one came down from heaven. The Watchers were divine agents, celestial observers assigned to monitor human affairs. But instead of remaining faithful to their mission, they became like undercover agents who decided to exploit their power. Imagine a group of secret agents sent to protect a city. Instead of maintaining order, they infiltrate and corrupt, using their authority to bend the rules. That's the Watchers. They didn't just observe humanity, they became enamored with it. The beauty of human women captivated them, and they made a fateful decision. They would abandon their heavenly posts and cross the forbidden boundary. This single act would alter the course of human history and unleash consequences that still echo today. But who were these Watchers? The Book of Enoch, an ancient text, identifies them as 200 angels, led by chiefs like Semjaza and Azazel. They made a pact, a collective decision, to descend to earth and take human wives. But this was no mere romantic attraction. It was an act of rebellion, a deliberate crossing of boundaries that were never meant to be crossed. What they did next would produce something the world had never seen, and would come to fear for generations. In Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 to 4, the story takes a dark and disturbing turn. The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. These sons of God were none other than the Watchers. Their forbidden union with human women resulted in the birth of a hybrid race known as the Nephilim, a name that translates to fallen ones or giants. They were described as mighty men of old, men of renown, but their power was not a blessing, it was a curse. Picture this: towering giants with incredible strength, beings that were part celestial and part human. They weren't just big, they were brutal, violent, and insatiable. Ancient texts describe them as devourers of men, consuming the resources of the earth and wreaking havoc on civilizations. Imagine a city under the control of tyrannical overlords, beings who use their superior strength to dominate and oppress. That was the world in the days of Noah. But why did the Watchers do it? Was it mere lust, or was there a deeper motive? According to Enoch, they taught humanity forbidden knowledge. the secrets of warfare, sorcery, and forbidden arts. They introduced weapons, incantations, and dark practices that would corrupt the world. This knowledge was not a gift, it was a poison. Today we hear stories of genetic manipulation and hybrid experiments, tales of scientists attempting to merge human DNA with animal genes. But what if the first hybrids weren't created in a lab, but in the days of Noah? The Nephilim were the original hybrids, a grotesque perversion of God's creation, a living reminder of the Watchers' rebellion. But the corruption of the Watchers and the Nephilim wouldn't go unchecked. Divine judgment was on the horizon. God looked down upon the earth and saw a world consumed by violence and corruption. The Nephilim had become a plague, their existence a testament to the Watchers' transgression. It was time for divine intervention. The Great Flood would act as a cosmic reset, a cleansing of the earth from the bloodshed and horror unleashed by these fallen beings. But what of the Watchers themselves? Jude chapter 1 verse 6 reveals their fate. And the angels who did not keep their positions of authority but abandoned their proper dwelling, these he has kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains for judgment on the great day. They were cast down, imprisoned in the darkest abyss, awaiting the final judgment. It was a punishment both severe and just. Imagine the most dangerous criminals locked away in a high-security prison, their freedom stripped away, awaiting a final sentencing that would determine their eternal fate. That's the Watchers. Celestial prisoners, trapped in chains, forever isolated from the realms they once roamed. But what about the Nephilim? According to some traditions, they were not just wiped out by the flood. Their spirits, half angelic and half human, became wandering entities, restless spirits that would continue to torment humanity, influencing the wicked and inciting rebellion against God. And here lies the chilling connection. If the Watchers could corrupt humanity once, could it happen again? Is it possible that their influence still lingers, their dark legacy echoing through the ages? The flood was meant to cleanse the earth of these hybrids, to wash away the sins of the Watchers and their monstrous offspring. But did it truly end their reign? Or did some Nephilim survive, hidden in the shadows, waiting to rise again? When the great flood subsided, the world emerged cleansed, a fresh start for humanity. But as Noah and his descendants began to repopulate the earth, a disturbing presence reappeared. In Numbers chapter 13 verse 33, the spies sent by Moses to survey the promised land returned with a terrifying report. There we saw the giants, the Nephilim, the descendants of Anak came from the giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. Giants. How could they have survived the flood? If the flood was meant to purge the earth of these monstrous hybrids, why did the spies encounter them again? Some scholars suggest that the Watchers, though bound in chains, may have left behind forbidden knowledge, a dark legacy that allowed the Nephilim to rise again. Others speculate that a second incursion of fallen angels could have taken place, repeating the same transgressions that led to the first generation of Nephilim. This theory aligns with the phrase "and also afterward" in Genesis chapter 6 verse 4, hinting that even after the flood, the Nephilim re-emerged. But what if there's another possibility? What if the bloodline of the Nephilim wasn't entirely eradicated? Could some survivors have hidden away, biding their time until the world repopulated? The descendants of Anak, Goliath, and other giants mentioned throughout the Old Testament could be remnants of this hybrid race. Today, stories of giant skeletons and unexplained megalithic structures continue to surface, sparking debates about lost civilizations and hidden histories. If Cain feared the inhabitants of Nod, if he trembled at the thought of encountering other beings, could it be that he had witnessed the dark strength of these giants firsthand? Did he know that even after the flood, their bloodline would find a way to resurface? As the descendants of Noah spread across the earth, a disturbing trend began to emerge. Across multiple ancient cultures, From Sumeria to Egypt, Greece to Mesopotamia, tales of god kings, hybrid beings, and demigods became prevalent. In nearly every culture, legends speak of beings who were half divine, half human, wielding tremendous power and often ruling as tyrants. Take the Greek Titans, for example. Gigantic, powerful, and vengeful, they were the children of the sky god Uranus and the earth goddess Gaia, celestial and earthly, just like the Nephilim. Similarly, the Sumerian texts speak of gods who descended from the heavens, mingling with humanity and creating powerful offspring. The Egyptians worshipped pharaohs who claimed divine ancestry, tracing their bloodlines back to gods who walked the earth. But could these myths be more than mere stories? Could they be distorted echoes of the pre-flood world, where the Nephilim ruled as tyrants, giants with supernatural abilities and unquenchable lust for power? And if so, was Cain's fear a residual memory, a whispered warning of those who once dominated the earth? Imagine a world where fallen angels and their hybrid offspring established themselves as gods, demanding worship and sacrifices from the weaker humans. A world where divine beings banished from heaven sought to rebuild their power through their half-human progeny. This is the world that Noah's descendants stepped into. A world haunted by echoes of a dark and twisted legacy. And yet, as they spread across the earth, these tales persisted. The giants of the Promised Land, the mighty men of renown, the powerful demigods of pagan lore, they all point to a time when the boundaries between the celestial and the earthly were blurred. But if giants and hybrid beings survived after the flood, what about the watchers who fathered them? Were they still bound in chains? Or was there a darker plot unfolding beneath the surface of human history? The flood was meant to wash away the sins of the watchers and their monstrous offspring, but it seems that not everything was swept away. As humanity spread and multiplied, so too did the dark influence of the fallen ones. But how did their legacy persist, and what role did the watchers play in the rise of pagan gods and the resurgence of giants? After Cain murdered Abel, God pronounced a curse upon him, condemning him to a life of wandering. Genesis chapter 4 verse 16 states, "And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod, on the east of Eden." But here's the unsettling question: who was Cain afraid of? Why did he express fear that anyone who finds me will kill me? Genesis 4:14. If Adam, Eve, and Cain were the only living humans at that time, who were these mysterious others that Cain feared? The Bible is curiously silent about the inhabitants of Nod, yet the very mention of this place suggests it was already established, already populated. Was it a city, a settlement, or perhaps something far more ominous? Imagine wandering through a ghost town, a city once bustling with life but now silent and empty, haunted by the echoes of a forgotten past. That's Nod, a place where Cain became a fugitive, tormented by the possibility of encountering others. Thus, who were they? Some scholars propose that Nod was populated by other descendants of Adam and Eve, who had settled and multiplied without being mentioned in the Genesis account. But others suggest a more chilling possibility, that Nod was a remnant of a pre-Adamic civilization, a land once inhabited by beings who existed long before Adam's creation. Consider the gap theory, which posits that a catastrophic event occurred between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2, eradicating a previous world. What if Nod was a city of survivors? Fallen beings, or hybrid offspring of the Watchers, beings who once walked the earth in a time before Adam? Today we walk through abandoned cities and ancient ruins, places where civilizations rose and fell, leaving behind nothing but bones and broken stones. Could Nod have been such a place, a haunting reminder of a world that was destroyed and then forgotten? If Cain feared for his life in Nod, then clearly he was not alone. The text implies that Cain expected to encounter hostile forces, beings capable of taking his life. But who were they? One theory suggests that the descendants of the fallen Watchers may have roamed Nod. These beings, half human and half divine, were known for their immense strength and violence. Genesis 6:4 describes the Nephilim as mighty men of renown, a term that could also apply to the inhabitants of Nod. Imagine Cain wandering into a land ruled by giants, towering beings with unnatural strength and a grudge against humanity. Would he have recognized them as descendants of the fallen angels? Would he have feared their wrath, knowing that his very presence might provoke them? Another possibility is that the inhabitants of Nod were pre-Adamic beings, creatures that survived the great cataclysm between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2. If so, they might have seen Cain as a threat or an intruder, a new creation in a world they once ruled. The Book of Enoch provides further insight, suggesting that after the fall of the Watchers, their hybrid offspring, the Nephilim, continued to roam the earth, causing chaos and terror. Could Cain have encountered these monstrous hybrids, beings who viewed him as nothing more than prey? In response to Cain's fear, God places a mark upon him, a mysterious sign that would prevent others from killing him. But what exactly was this mark? Was it a physical scar, a glowing symbol, or something more profound? Some ancient texts suggest that the mark of Cain was a sign of divine protection, a warning to the other inhabitants of Nod that Cain was under God's watchful eye. But what if the mark also served as a beacon, signaling to the fallen ones that Cain was a protected outcast, untouchable yet marked as a murderer? Imagine walking through a dangerous territory, wearing a symbol that both shields and isolates you. That was Cain's fate in Nod, a wanderer among predators, marked yet protected, cursed yet preserved. And as he built a city in that haunted land, naming it after his son Enoch, Cain's legacy became a monument to fear and isolation, a chilling reminder that even in a world ruled by fallen beings, divine judgment would not be withheld. But what if the story of Nod is more than just an ancient tale? What if the echoes of Nod still linger today, in the ruins of lost civilizations and the myths of monstrous beings who once roamed the earth? The land of Nod was a place of exile, a shadowy world where Cain confronted the unknown. But what about the world that existed before Adam? Was Nod merely a fragment of a lost civilization, or was it part of a much larger world destroyed in a divine cataclysm? The answer may lie in the chilling accounts of those who came before Adam, the celestial sons of God and the fallen Watchers. From the very beginning, the Bible presents us with mysteries hidden in plain sight. The gap theory suggests that a world existed long before Adam, a world that may have been ruled by beings now forgotten, a world that ended in cataclysm, leaving only echoes in the form of Nod, the land where Cain wandered, haunted by the remnants of a fallen race. The sons of God, celestial beings who witnessed the creation of the world, once sang for joy as the earth took shape. But not all remained loyal. Lucifer's rebellion shattered heaven's harmony, and a third of the angels fell, becoming the dark forces that still seek to corrupt humanity. Then came the Watchers, heavenly agents assigned to observe humanity. But instead of protecting, they violated their mission, taking human wives and producing the Nephilim, the hybrid giants whose corruption and violence brought about the Great Flood. The world was cleansed, but the memory of the giants remained. In the post-flood era, whispers of giants and hybrid beings resurfaced, haunting the pages of scripture and the annals of ancient civilizations. And then there was Cain, cursed and exiled to the land of Nod, a place that already existed, already inhabited by others. Who were these mysterious beings? Was Cain's fear a glimpse into a world we no longer remember? A world that Genesis only hints at? A world before Adam, ruled by fallen sons of God and haunted by the shadows of giants? Today we still fear the unknown. We still walk through ruins of ancient civilizations, wondering what came before us. We hear whispers of giants, lost worlds, and celestial beings, and we dismiss them as myths. But what if they aren't? What if Cain's question wasn't just his own, but a question that still echoes through the ages? Who will find me and slay me? Are we walking over the graves of a forgotten world? A world that once stood before the floodwaters came? A world that still haunts our stories, our nightmares, and perhaps even our reality? If this revelation reshaped your understanding of biblical history, like this video, share your thoughts below, and subscribe to Sacred Wisdom for more hidden truths and biblical mysteries. What do you think? Was Cain's fear a glimpse into a lost world or something even more chilling? Join the conversation. Stay curious, stay vigilant. Thank you for watching with us to the end. Until next time, may you walk in peace, faith, and power.